Hey, listen!
Welcome everyone, this is Andre's Restart, and today we're talking about if it's almost time for Nintendo Switch 2. But before we jump into things, let me point out that we are aiming to hit 25,000 subscribers by the time Tears of the Kingdom comes out on May 12th. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe and hit that notification bell, because then we might just make it. The first point I would like to cover here is that if you're someone who has a Switch, who is not ready to move on to Switch 2 in the not so distant future, you shouldn't be worried. If you look at how Nintendo handled the 3DS was still receiving new Nintendo games into 2019, and there were still 3DS revisions coming out shortly before and after the launch of the Switch. For example, we saw the Pokemon Sun and Moon 3DS come out for the holiday alongside Pokemon Sun and Moon late 2016, and yet still a few months later, Switch came out. We even saw the release for the new 2DS revision during the Switch era. So when it comes to Switch 1, I wouldn't even be surprised if when Switch 2 is out, Nintendo releases another revision for the Switch 1 family, maybe like a Switch Lite OLED, and there are still other special editions alongside new games. This is all still on the table. And there still will be new games coming out for the system. That's the precedent that was set with the 3DS. And if you're doubtful that Nintendo will follow a similar strategy with the next system, also keep in mind that this way of doing things has kind of become an industry standard. PlayStation 4, Xbox One, still somewhat relevant. These systems have been supported years into the next generation cycles with PS5 and the Xbox Series. So I don't think you should be worried. But at the same time, for those thinking that because the Switch itself is still relevant, that there's no reason for a Switch 2, I don't really agree with that. I think the Switch is likely going to live alongside the Switch 2 for a while to come. So for those looking to see like a major drought to signal the end of the Switch generation and the time of the Switch 2 being around the corner, I don't think that's the right sign to be looking for here. Nintendo is going to continue to support the Switch for a long time. They've become extremely successful now that they've unified their gaming divisions and they're coming out with consistent games pretty much every month. Some of them pointing to how some industry insiders have been saying that after Tears of the Kingdom, it's going to be a bit of a drought, potentially signaling the next generation system. But I think that was a bit of a misinterpretation or a little misleading. They were talking about there being big games, and what is a big game? Maybe like the next Pokemon, for example. It's hard to say for sure, but one of those people that started that conversation has kind of gone back on those comments, and a lot of people have actually missed out on this and are still thinking that there's going to be this massive drought. Andy Robinson, the owner for Video Games Chronicle, one of the most reputable journalism sites there are when it comes to gaming, they had a couple tweets back in February. Nintendo's statement: since this year's E3 show didn't fit into our plans, we have made the decision to not participate. However, we have been and continue to be a strong supporter of the ESA and E3. And then Andy says, as I said first, Nintendo is a supporter of E3, this year's show doesn't fit. That said, there's growing suggestion that instead of a weaker 2023 lineup as they first reported, its games might just fall later into this year. So for those that have been citing Andy Robinson suggesting that there's not going to be much games after Tears of the Kingdom and that 2023 is going to be a dry year, Andy Robinson is suggesting otherwise. There just may be a little bit of a dip after the release for Tears of the Kingdom. Which brings me to my next point. After Tears of the Kingdom, there's nothing in June, there's Pikmin 4 in July, and then nothing else slated for the rest of the year but DLC. I don't think Nintendo's not going to just do anything. I think there will likely be an announcement, maybe even in June, announcing games for the rest of the year. Potentially, this could be a presentation that includes an announcement for the Switch 2 sometime in the summer, and they may even showcase some Switch games or new Switch 2 games running and looking better for the next system sometime this summer. Is it for sure? No, that's not for sure. But it is odd that this late into the year, we don't know really that much about Nintendo's second half. As Andy Robinson says, it's still coming, we just don't know what it is. Usually, this late into the year, we have a pretty good understanding of most of the major releases for the second half. There would still be some surprises, but at this point, all we know about is DLC and Pikmin 4. A few days ago, we talked about how we heard that Metroid Prime 4 is complete. Could that potentially be a launch title? Maybe. The Mario movie is about to come out. Does Nintendo want a Mario game to come out later this year to get a boost from the Mario movie? Also possible. And both these games would be great options to push a new powerful system. But do we need a more powerful system? You look at games like Bayonetta 3, where at one point they wanted to go more open world, and you look at how the game came out and it's had performance issues. You look at how we haven't gotten games like Resident Evil 4 Remake, which is kind of sad because the initial release for Resident Evil 4 was back on the Nintendo GameCube, and yet it's not on a Nintendo system. And there are other exciting games that people have been enjoying that have just not been coming to Switch, like Elden Ring. How great would it be to see things like Resident Evil 4 Remake and Elden Ring come out for the next Nintendo system, maybe this holiday? How great would it be to see games running well like Bayonetta 3, or maybe Tears of the Kingdom could have a higher frame rate, a higher detailed 60 FPS version at some point later this year for a new system. Those would be exciting things, and I think there's definitely an audience on Switch that would find that appealing, but not everyone will. So how much of a need is there? Well, I'd argue that this goes back to how Nintendo's probably still going to be pushing Switch for years to come. There's going to be a transitional period here, a few years, where they're still going to be pushing Switch, so for those who don't need the visual update or whatever else the Switch 2 offers, they don't need to move on immediately. But for those that want it, Nintendo could be giving us that option. And we may start to see some of those bigger third-party games come out, and while I don't think that's going to be a substantial market for the Switch, it is going to be somewhat of a market, and it's going to be nice to see those as options. The point is, the Switch is dated hardware. It is time. We are in the 7th year for the Nintendo Switch. Most Nintendo systems don't go this long. By the time the Switch 2 would come out, even if it is at the end of this year, which is probably the earliest we would see this system, the Switch is going to have a longer generation than pretty much every system but the NES and the Game Boy, and if they go a little bit longer, then it will exceed even those. I mean, I actually do think it's going to exceed those. I just think that there will be a new system that will also be coming out existing alongside it before that happens. But considering this idea that there could be some Switch games that could get visual upgrades like maybe Tears of the Kingdom, there was this leak that has not been disproven that detailed the entire expansion pass for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet that also included information suggesting that there would be a graphics enhancement patch for a next generation Switch to come out for the second wave of that DLC, which is slated for winter 2023, which basically means sometime between probably December 2023 through March of 2024, implying that a next generation system would be out by March 2024, potentially as soon as sometime this year. Now, we should take this leak with a grain of salt because until it's confirmed, you never really know. Maybe plans will change behind the scenes, maybe something will get delayed, maybe this is somehow leak bait. Even if you 100% believe the source, that doesn't mean the Switch 2 will come out this year or early next year. So take it with a grain of salt. But there have been other rumors and leaks suggesting that a Switch 2 is around the corner. Now, there was this rumor recently that a lot of people talked about how dev kits might be out, but it looks like that rumor has been debunked. However, we did talk about a few weeks ago how we are seeing that it looks like the Tegra 239, which is what's rumored to be in the Switch 2, was taped up and completed and ready for manufacturing as early as March of 2022. So I think it's possible that Nintendo could be gearing up or is already gearing up for the launch of their next system, and they're keeping things hush-hush. People are looking to see dev kits. We haven't gotten any substantial information that they are out there. There were rumors a while back that some developers had dev kits, but that may have just been for the what's rumored to be canceled Switch Pro. But I also think when you consider that we're seeing shorter intervals between announcement and releases for Nintendo systems and games as of late, it wouldn't shock me if there are some companies that have dev kits that have kept it really hush-hush, and we may see an announcement for Switch sometime this year, maybe in the summer, and it comes out in the holiday. I don't think that's totally out of the question. Going back to the rumored chip, the Tegra 239, there was an NVIDIA developer that confirmed the existence of this chip apparently, and while we don't know for sure if this is technically going to be the Switch 2, it is widely believed. The NVIDIA leak included a profile for NS2, which many believe is for Nintendo Switch 2 because NS1 was for Switch 1. I would say it's pretty darn likely that they are absolutely working on the next system, which really shouldn't come as any shock, because research and development for the next system is always ongoing. The real question is, when is it coming? Is it time? And the truth is, I don't know when the next system is going to come, but I think that Nintendo can very easily get away with the release of a new system this holiday. Switch came out in 2017, Switch Lite came out in 2019, and Switch OLED came out in 2021. It's now 2023. If the pattern follows, there will be another substantial revision this year. And with the entire second half vacant, but there's still being a need for games to come, and considering how Nintendo's been handling things, it seems likely that there will still be games to come. And that we have seen leaks suggesting that there's going to be graphics enhancement patches for a next generation system for content that's coming out around the holiday time or shortly afterwards. And that we have seen that Nvidia is probably working on some chip for the Switch 2, and it may have been completed as early as last year. I think we're pretty close. And with Tears of the Kingdom coming out this May, Nintendo's gonna need something else exciting to keep us going afterwards. Will that be Metroid Prime 4? Will that be the rumored Donkey Kong game? Will it be 3D Mario? Will it be all of the above alongside a new system? That remains to be seen. But I do think we are close. I do think it is almost time. I'm willing to say that I even think that there's a pretty good chance it happens this year. I'm gonna say I'm 50-50. I'm almost ready to say 60-40 this year versus next year, but I'm waiting on just a little bit more evidence. I do think Nintendo can get away with not having a Switch 2 come out this holiday. I think they could have something like a Metroid Prime 4 coming out. Like I said earlier, we've heard it's done, so it may be the big game for this year, and then they could save 3D Mario for next year for their next system. But we're close, and if that Pokemon leak is legitimate and it holds true, well, I do think it means Switch 2 this year. That said, we gotta take these things with a grain of salt. We shall see, but let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Is it almost time for Nintendo Switch 2? Let me know. This is Andre's Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.